world that rewards urgency, speed, and constant output, clarity has become a lost skill. Power of the Pause is a space for leaders and changemakers who are ready to stop reacting and start discerning. Grounded in learning science and human-centered leadership, this series explores how regulation, intentional pause, and clarity become tools for ethical, sustainable leadership. Because when clarity leads, everything changes. Welcome your host, Dr. Darcell Streeter.
Welcome to Power of the Pause. I'm Dr. Darcell Streeter. This episode is called The Pause That Saved Me. And after this conversation, I hope that you would let it save you too. We've been taught that strength looks like pushing through, that leadership means endurance at any cost, and that pausing means you're falling behind, and none of that is true. That story is incomplete. So let me ask you this. What if the most powerful leaders aren't the ones who move the fastest? They are the ones who know when to pause. See, pause is not weakness, it's not avoidance, and it's not falling behind. In leadership, business, and decision-making research, intentional pausing has been shown to reduce cognitive overload. It improves clarity, and it strengthens your judgment, especially under pressure. And I don't know about you, but I really want someone thinking clearly when they're under deep pressure or high pressure. You know, the first thing that comes to mind is an airplane. Now, Lord willing, none of this will ever happen to me. I don't want to have the experience to have lived it. But from the reports that we've heard, the stories that we've heard, or the TV that we've watched, when you're flying and something goes wrong, the pilots are under an extreme amount of pressure. I don't care how much they've trained. They're under extreme amount of pressure. And I want them thinking clearly when it's time for them to make those snap decisions. And so if they are exhausted, if they are not of clear mind, that for me would make me very nervous when they're forced to think quickly on their feet, because they may be thinking quickly, but they're thinking out of clarity. So again, pausing works really well when you're under a lot of pressure. So it doesn't mean that slowing down authority, because slowing down does not diminish your authority. It actually sharpens it. I like that. The thing is, many of us don't pause though, or don't plan when the pause arrives. I know I didn't. So the pause came up in my life and kicked the door in is what it did. It did. And really didn't give me an option to listen. I mean, I guess I did have a choice, but I didn't. It was, you either listen now or you're going to ruin yourself. You're going to ruin your life. You're going to throw yourself so far off course. You'll have to do more work to get you back just to a place to where you can start again. And nobody wanted that. I didn't want that. So it has been my experience that whenever my body nudges me to pause, I listen. As a matter of fact, it almost doesn't have to nudge me. I can feel it coming up and I listen. But for those of you who have not experienced the pause yet, and I'm not talking about menopause. This was so funny. When I was talking about my show, the lady was like, there was a woman I was speaking with, and she was like, oh, so what are we talking about here? The power of menopause? That's a good conversation too, because, for those of us who are there, we understand the power of the pause, but this is not that pause. But let me tell you how it arrives. This pause arrives as exhaustion. It arrives as irritability, and it arrives as brain fog, and as closely related to menopausal symptoms as that is. This is from exhaustion, or this is from overextension. This particular pause is the quiet grief of realizing that you are still functioning, you are still over-functioning, but you no longer feel whole. Think about that. Think about still functioning, think about over-functioning and no longer feeling whole. In chapter 4 of my journal, Reflections of Coming Her, Healed, Effective, and Reigning, I call that the threshold moment. This moment is the place where the body interrupts the identity that you've been performing. The threshold moment. The body interrupts the identity you've been performing. You're welcome. That was good there. So thank you. That was. Because if we don't think that we perform identities, Think through all the titles that you have and all the titles that you wear. Think of, for those of us who code switch in different environments, think of all the things that you do and the moments you so wonderfully and smoothly and cohesively or effortlessly slip out of here to be that and then back to here. Yeah, we perform identities all the time. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm saying that when it gets to a place where we're overextended, we need to stop and really put some things in order. Health and occupational psychology research shows that chronic stress dysregulates the nervous system. I'm not saying anything that you guys don't know already. I don't think that I am. But a dysregulated nervous system, not cool. No, mental wellness is too important, and not just for you to perform something, for you to be around and for you to treat your body in the way that it deserves to be treated. All right, mind, body, and spirit. Dysregulated nervous system or lacking a pause in your life impairs emotional regulation, cognitive flexibility, and decision quality. And I don't know about you, but when you're making a decision on my behalf or a decision pertaining to me, I want it to be a quality decision. And when I'm making decisions, I want to make quality decisions. So when the body then starts acting up and acting out, and I've heard people say my body is betraying me. No, it's not. No, it's not. Your body is informing you because your body been trying to give you data and you're not listening. Your body is informing you when it starts doing certain things. All right? There's actually been research published in scientific reports demonstrating that waiting even a short amount of time before acting significantly improves your decision accuracy. I didn't say 5 minutes. I didn't say 15 minutes. I didn't say go take a run, even though you can. There's nothing wrong with that. But waiting even a short amount of time before acting significantly improves your decision accuracy. Think about that. Researchers call this response a resource rational boost. Say that 3 times, resource rational boost. But I think that that's pretty cool, that there is a name to pausing for just a short amount of time before acting and what it does to you mentally, what it does to you physiologically, what it does to your nervous system. That is pretty darn interesting information to underscore why pausing is so critical in our life, why pausing to realign is such a benefit to the body, to the mind, to the emotions. When there is resource rational boost, the research says that the brain performs better without needing more effort, without needing more energy or more information. So just pausing for a second, just giving your brain a break for a second causes your brain to not need more effort to do what it needs to do, not need more energy to do what it needs to do, and not need additional information to do what it needs to do. I think that's pretty fair. I think that's a fair trade-off. See, better decisions don't come from pushing harder, and I learned this. Better decisions come from waiting wisely. Girl, because that's good, right? You don't have to say it. It is. That's good. Better decisions come from waiting wisely. So this pause that I'm harping on, that I'm talking about, that I've become a new fan fave of, is not inefficiency. It's intelligence. Anytime somebody tries to come at you about this theory behind pausing, first you can send them the research and you'll be able to find that on my show page, but also let them know that this is intelligence. This intelligence is outside of your realm. So that's probably why you don't understand it. So, but don't say it in a sarcastic way. Don't demean people. But I'm just saying, know what you know and then know it. And don't let anyone tell you anything different from what you know. What you know is right. Let me put it that way. So I want us to pause together. Yep, we're about to breathe. Pausing includes breathing. It can include a lot of things. But this, to align, there needs to be breath. There needs to be intentional movement. Yep. So we're going to breathe. And for those of you who do yoga or Pilates, I do like wall Pilates, but you know that in these meditative exercises, there's a lot of breathing. For those of you who don't really do it and who thinks that it's just, an oversell to always talk about breathing, that's because you've not taken the time to actually do it. There is a power, listen to me, there is a power that comes along with regulating your thoughts. So regulating your nervous system, aligning your thoughts, breathing intentionally, and then putting words with that. Oh, it's powerful. I'm telling you, it is a powerful thing. So let's place our feet flat on the floor. Come on and join me in this exercise, will you? Let's place our feet flat on the floor. We're going to drop our shoulders and we are going to inhale slowly through your nose. You're going to exhale gently through your mouth. And then you're going to whisper quietly. Rest gives me permission to. What goes behind that too for you? What does rest give you permission to do? Think about that. And you place that word right there. Because rest is not a retreat. Rest is a powerful infrastructure and strategy for your life. And it affects everything you touch when you learn how to use it properly, when you treat it as a strategy, as a system, as a tool. Okay, I want to pause right here. So we're going to pause again. Because what we've named in the first segment isn't about productivity. It's not a productivity problem, as a matter of fact. And so if anyone joins or watches this somewhere in the middle, I want to make sure that you don't think we're talking about pausing for productivity purposes. That's not what this is about. This is about an identity pattern, because pausing causes you to reflect. It causes you to introspect. It causes you to come face to face with the broken things, with the dysregulated things in your life. It causes you to identify some things. So again, pausing and what we've named in the first segment of this is not about productivity. It's about identity. It's about understanding that the best thing that you can do for the best or the most optimal outcomes in your life is to be in alignment with yourself, with your inner person, and is to show respect to yourself, to your inner person. That person feeds your external. And so how you frame yourself inwardly, right, is how you live your experiences externally. Reflections of Becoming Her, my journal, Healed, Effective, and Reigning, was written out of this very moment, out of knowing when to pause, out of identifying the areas where I needed to regulate. And we don't like that word because we think it implies something, and it can. But listen, regulation and my nervous system regulation, all of that, oh, those are my best friends. We have the best conversations. Regulating is a good thing. This was written from a point of understanding that I need to be honest with the other broken areas in my life. So maybe this didn't have to do with a trauma that I was dealing with, but it had to do with unhealthy patterns of performance. Even though this is not about performance, this is about identity, it does affect performance. It can affect performance. So again, this is not about productivity, but it is about identifying what causes us to overextend. So it's about identity. And when pausing, or when pushing rather, stopped working in my life, that's when honesty became necessary. I had to be real honest with myself. I had to take a good look. So this journal was born out of private reflection, not public performance. It was born out of overcoming, not overextension, and purpose, not pain. Because when people write books like this, journals and reflection, books of reflection, they often think about or talk about their pain. And there's nothing wrong with talking about the pain. But the pain is what fueled my purpose or helped me to weed out things so that I can identify my purpose better. So the journal came from a place of purpose and understanding, more so than it did a place of pain and loss. And if you're standing in that moment where you know something's got to change, that chapter 4 threshold that you're going to read about, because hopefully you pre-order my journal, you understand what I'm talking about. Listen, we've been talking about regulation. We've been talking about pausing. Now I want to talk about what comes after the pausing, which is the rebuilding. So you have to rebuild from regulation. When you put in the work to regulate yourself, you then have to reconstruct, rebuild yourself, because again, you're challenging ideologies and frameworks. And so you're reframing things. You're seeing things differently. You are restructuring. You're rebuilding your infrastructure, your internal infrastructure. And that comes with a little skill. It comes with a little strategy. This rebuilding doesn't come from enduring more of anything. It comes from aligning better with your inner person, just as we talked about right before the book trailer. So there's a particular theory that I want to talk about that looks incredible in action. And for those of you who are familiar with me, you know that I'm a learning scientist. I'm a human services practitioner. I am a learning science practitioner, learning science advocate. That is where my academic research is being performed. And interestingly, I started out in my doctorate program focused on bridging the gap between generative AI and culturally responsive pedagogy, which I'm still very interested in that. But then as I moved into the adult learning environment and began to spend a lot of time there, especially with speakers of other language, but that's a different conversation. But when I moved into that environment and started thinking about and specializing in the way that we adults learn in informal learning settings, that's when I really saw this self-determination theory at work and how powerful it is. And there's so much research out there that supports it. As a matter of fact, decades of research show that sustainable motivation and self-determination theory and motivation go hand in hand. But sustainable motivation and well-being depend on 3 psychological needs, and that is autonomy, competence. Ooh, I didn't say competence. Yeah, autonomy, competence, and relatedness. These are 3 psychological needs. Do I need some water? Do I need some milk? Oh my gosh. Okay. These are 3 psychological needs that any human needs them, but in adults, when you want to kind of regulate some things in your life, when you want to have your power back, these are the 3 things you need that help influence that. Okay. So let's talk about what autonomy is. It's a person's need to feel their actions are self-endorsed. All right. And align with their own values. So when I feel like I've been motivated, that I have selected, I have chosen to do whatever it is that I have done, I am self-endorsed. That's when I have autonomy. That's when I feel autonomous, right? It's not about being independent. It's about that value of feeling like you are aligned, your choices are aligned with your values. It's about having meaningful choice. It's about having agency. And within that, it's about your recognizing your voice. So that's what autonomy is, all right? The need to feel that your actions are self-endorsed and hearing your voice, knowing that your voice is being heard, your choice, your agency are being valued and respected. When you're talking about leadership, in the leadership context, autonomy grows when people feel that they're the authors of their own experience and not controlled or coerced. So when I feel like I have authored a decision that I've made and it's not something that I was forced to do, that's when I feel most autonomous. All right, because now my lived experience is being affected by my voice, my agency, my choice. So then let's talk about competence. A person's need to feel effective and capable and able to master their own tasks or challenges. That's where the competence level comes in. All right. It's nurtured through clear structure, feedback, and opportunities to build skill. So for adult learners or adults in leadership, let me put it that way, competence is strengthened when tasks, when you know how to scaffold things within your own life and see the visibility of success from the way that you know how to scaffold in your own life, your own challenges, and your own weak spots, your own gaps in your life. And then relatedness is a person's need to feel connected and seen and valued by others. And we all know that there's something powerful when we feel connected to community, or we feel connected to our partner, or we feel seen and valued by someone significant to us, or someone in leadership, or our family. It's about belonging and, mutual respect and meaningful relationships. So when we find, when we listen, when pause arrives in our life and we begin to listen to it, that pause restores autonomy, and autonomy restores power. There's been research in occupational and health psychology that consistently shows that self-regulation improves leadership effectiveness and emotional intelligence and long-term performance when you have those three agents present: autonomy, competence, and relatedness, while chronic stress on the opposite side erodes all of those things. So that brings me to this thought here. Burnout, because that's what overextension does, right? Causes burnout. Burnout is not a leadership credential. Rest, and I mentioned this at the top of the show, rest is not a reward. It is an infrastructure. And when you begin to reframe the way you see rest, it becomes powerful. In my journal, Reflections on Becoming Her, Healed, Effective, and Reigning, this is the shift that I call, or I go from survival to sovereignty. And I don't spell it out, but you kind of start hearing the tone, moving from survival to sovereignty. And that's where pause became the authorship in my life. Okay? Good stuff, right? Especially when you have these aha moments. All right, so now that we have talked about becoming the authorship, and pausing, helping us to author our lives in a more constructive way, let's talk about step B. So the power of the pause, or the pause, was step A. Pausing was step A. Let's talk about step B. Once we have paused, I talked about rebuilding, getting into the rebuilding of your life, and that is the beginning place. So becoming, BECOMING, is an acronym, and it's an 8-step program for learning to pause, for learning to deconstruct the strong woman narrative, for learning about soft strength, for learning how to align with self. I've done it, and I've had to stop and restart it, or I've done it and then I've gone back to different components of it throughout these last 10 years. I've been doing this for, probably 15 years, but throughout this last 10 years, the way I've moved through her has been so incredible. And the beginning place is always honesty. One of the most difficult things that we'll experience as humans is to look ourselves face. But the release that comes after being honest with yourself is incredible. The freedom, the liberty that you get with being honest with yourself is invigorating, because now you've given yourself a fresh canvas to build from. You know what's there. You know all the spots on the canvas, all the imperfect places on the canvas. You know where some of the challenges are going to be. Because you faced them, and you're honest with yourself about this now. So the beginning place is honesty, and it's where you stop negotiating with your exhaustion. Remember, at the top of this, we were talking about overextension, and pause shows up as exhaustion, right? Well, when you're at this point, you stop negotiating with exhaustion, because your body becomes data, not an obstacle. And if you're truthful with yourself, if we're truthful, we have for far too long treated our bodies as an obstacle, something that we needed to get out of the way. So the body shows up with different issues, and it starts to, as we mentioned earlier, do some things outside of the norm, give you some challenges, and we're not receiving it as data, as information. We're receiving it as a betrayal of some degree that our body is doing to us. And it's not that. It's not an obstacle. The body is not an obstacle to ignore. It is data to be informed by. And when we are rebuilding and autonomy is restored, there's a new motivation that also comes. And that motivation is internal, is intrinsic rather than extrinsic, or it's not there as a result of any pressure. It's not pressurized motivation. It is internalized motivation. And that's the kind you want, right? So let me ask you this question. Let's reflect on this question. What decision would shift if you allowed yourself to pause before acting? And really think about it. Because I know some of you are going to say, I don't need all that time. I'm a quick thinker. I get things done. I'm not saying anything is wrong with that. I'm not talking about that specifically. But I am asking you, because not every quick decision you make is just because the answer is right there, because it's just easy to decide. There are some things you do out of pressure, out of timeline, out of obligation, it's not always just because you can make the decision in the moment and there's no second thought to it. So if you thought about this, I wonder what your response would be. What decision would shift if you actually allowed yourself to pause before acting on that decision? And now I want you to affirm, and you can repeat this. I am allowed to rest. I am allowed to choose. And I am becoming whole. All right, so we're about to run into another commercial. This is the second part of my book trailer. Listen, thank you guys for hanging out with me thus far. I want you to take another listen to the other part of this book trailer. And like I said, I'm so excited about this, Reflections of Becoming Her. It's just the freedom I felt because of some of the things that I finally spoke about. And not that they had to be put in the journal. I haven't put absolutely everything in there yet. There's not in this one. But I put enough to give me the liberty and the freedom to reconstruct parts of me in a very positive and healing way. So before we close, we're going to see the second book trailer. And then I want to pause, this one last time, because insight without reflection doesn't last. So I want us to take these moments to really reflect on what we've been talking about. What sustains change is what you return to when no one is watching. Think about that. Because remember, I said change without transformation is a false sacrifice. You can move things out of your life, in and out. But if you don't transform, if you don't transmute some things in your life into something else, nothing is actually going to happen. You're going to feel trapped in an ideology, trapped in a behavior, trapped in your trauma. You're going to be trapped. All right? So think about that. What sustains change is what you return to when no one is watching. So in my journal, Reflections of Becoming Her, Healed Effective Reigning, this isn't about doing more. It's about rebuilding from wholeness. And that's what we're returning to wholeness. We're not trying to get whole. We've already been coded that way. So we're trying to get to the way we've already been coded. Okay? And thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. Let me say that right now. I appreciate it if you were able to hang with me. This idea of the power of the pause has done so much tremendous work in my life, or it has empowered me to do so much tremendous work in my own life, that I hope that you will take not only the experiences that I'm sharing, but also the data that goes along with it. Because don't forget, I am a learning scientist. So the data that goes along with the information that I bring forward to really hopefully convince you that there's so much greatness and power in the pause. But be reminded that pause is not where your power ends. It's where your power becomes available, not out of overextension, but out of overcoming, not out of pain, but out of purpose. Next time, we're going to dismantle the myth that burnout equals commitment. Hey, how many can give me a high five right there? And we're going to redefine what strength actually looks like. And we're going to talk about a touchy subject, that strong woman narrative. I've been there, done that. I have the lifetime membership card, but that baby looks different in my life now. Okay, we're going to deconstruct that whole ideology. All right. I want us to live from wholeness, not hurry. Lead from regulation and not reaction. So as, again, we say good day or whatever time you're watching this, that's what I want to remind you of. Live from wholeness, not hurry. Lead from regulation, not reaction. That is the power of the pause. Until next time.
Pausing isn't about stopping. It's about choosing wisely. Carry this pause with you into your decisions, your leadership, and the spaces where clarity matters most. Join me next time on Power of the Pause, where regulation leads, clarity guides, and leadership becomes sustainable.